In a world where hopium and common sense collide, starring the CryptoKeeper and BlockchainCrusader. Welcome to Debate Crypto. Crypto fam, it's your boy CryptoKeeper, and as always, BlockchainCrusader. But we have a special guest in the house this evening. We have got the one and only MineYour.Biz. Seth, how are you doing tonight, brother?
Hey, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on the show, guys. Really appreciate it.
Glad to have you.
Thank you for coming on, man.
You know, I'm excited to have you on because one of the things that Miguel and I have been talking about as part of our bear market strategy is that we want to get involved into some mining, whether it's very basic, whether it's heavily involved. I guess you might be teaching us some of that this evening, but I'm super excited to kind of get to know a little bit more about what you do and what that looks like. So I'm really glad to have you on. Crypto fam, just as a reminder, we're giving away $500 December 23rd. That is like, what, 2 days from now, I think? Something like that. Whatever the date is today. Yeah, December 23rd. So all you have to do is be subscribed. So do your thing and then make sure that you X out of the live chat if you're in the live chat and smash the likes. So without further ado, let's get into it. So let's just get right into it. Tell me this. So Seth, I met you on Around the Blockchain. And so we've talked a couple times on there. Your name is MineYour.Biz. So I think people are going to assume that you do mining. You've got a pretty good YouTube following. And so a lot of people know you as a crypto YouTuber, entrepreneur, right? But tell me, like, who is Seth? Who is MineYour.Biz? Like, really, who is he?
Wow. So veteran educator, man. That's kind of why I went into the YouTube content creation space. I mean, 20 years ago, I was teaching language and culture in a small training center while I was still a university student. After that point, going into tech training, I've worked for Fortune 50 companies like Microsoft, Google. I mean, not to make it weird, maybe some people have heard of these companies, but like AT&T, Dell, Samsung Telecom USA, sometimes as contract, and then other times as an agency employee that was itself under contract. But it's always been with that sort of sensibility of training people and helping people have that aha moment. And, you know, having a microphone in my hand or doing this sort of thing, it's not just second nature for me. It's been kind of like what I do for the last couple of decades. So when cryptocurrency hit my radar, when I saw that I could take kind of the much nerdier side of who Seth is, who likes to build things, who likes to put PCs together, take them apart, Frankenstein them, make things run that shouldn't be able to run. It's kind of like import tuning, but with PC parts. We'll make it a little less nerdy, I guess. Okay, no, that didn't work. But anyway, the point is, I really like hacking stuff and trying to make something go faster, right, and perform better. And when I saw that mining was my way to get kind of wrap my head around cryptocurrencies, I started that route because it was like, okay, you know, I don't know a whole lot about cryptocurrencies yet, but I know a thing or two about taking computers apart, putting them back together, making them do a very specific function. And so when I realized I could approach cryptocurrency from the proof of work mining side, and then I could get paid for it because the machines themselves would return block rewards, it just clicked. And really kind of haven't looked back after that point because I realized, okay, all that stuff I was doing for corporate America, especially for big data aggregators like Google and Microsoft, I was probably making the world a worse place by having done some of the stuff that I did there. And so this is kind of like my penance. I'm like, all right, I'm working in the open source space, and blockchain is, you know, it really is kind of one of the hopes of humanity, not the hope, but like, you know, it's one of those positive things, you know, that's kind of like the silver lining of all the clouds of what, you know, what the world is shaping up to be today. So yeah, it's a big nutshell, but there you have it. That's Seth.
No, that's fantastic, dude. So is this something that you've you know, you say you've worked for all these different companies and that's just been like what you've done. What's been maybe your biggest struggle in being Seth and the things that you've been doing and where you're at today? What's been kind of the hardest thing to overcome?
You know, I think this is pretty common, man. It's common for most people. Everybody deals with imposter syndrome. Like no matter what you've done in life, especially if you're a dude, right? Especially if you're a dude, when it comes to like, I'm going to say something that's going to ruffle some feathers, right? It's not going to rustle Jimmy's, but it will ruffle feathers.
Bring
it. Yeah, right. So if there's all of the one woman in your audience, right? Like cover your ears, I guess. Those are my metrics
It's
too,
pretty
guys.
quiet so far. It's pretty quiet so far tonight. So yeah, hit it. Let's get it.
Because it's just crypto, right? But for
Yeah.
dudes especially, right? Like we're judged by what we become and what we produce, right? Like we're not judged necessarily by by like our talent, right? Or like
Right.
or any other thing, like what we produce, what we become, like that, and like what we create with our own hands. That's how we're judged, and
Yeah.
it's always easy to feel like, okay, well, but there's the next thing, man, and I haven't gotten it yet, and I haven't built enough yet, it's not big enough yet. I can go bigger, and we feel this in the gym too, right? So no matter where you are in life, right, as a guy, this is like the existential struggle, right? Is the imposter syndrome of like, okay, I hit that milestone, but that was yesterday or that was last week. What's next? Can I definitely make it happen? And cryptocurrencies like that too, right? Where it's like, okay, got an entry point. I hope to have this target for exit. Maybe it doesn't achieve. There's some factors that are outside of my control, and then mining can feel like that too, right? It just can sometimes. So yeah, that's the biggest struggle, man. I'm being really vulnerable with you about that, but like, it's got nothing to do with like, okay, can I wrap my head around this? Can I solve this problem? Yeah, of course I can, man. Given enough time, given enough effort,
Right.
once you wrap your head around the problem, wrap your arms on the problem, you can make some progress. I don't worry about that. But I do occasionally have those internal battles where it's like, what do I want next? And was it good enough? Can I let go of the last thing? I don't
Yeah,
know.
for sure.
Maybe I was a little too real talk, right?
No,
Like,
no, no, no. We
No,
love it.
that
We
was
want
great,
to be real.
man. That was a great answer. It's completely true, right? It is completely true. The standards on men in today's world have shifted, and there's a lot of things going on. I don't know if we're going to get into that stuff today, but I know where you're at. I know where you're at. I can see where you're going. So my question to you, Seth, is with this social media, right? All this content creation, what's been your biggest struggle or dislike of the social media game?
Uh, I'm going to shout out one of your viewers right now. Who I think they summed it up because it's got crossover for the social media game. Dylan says only women and children and dogs are loved unconditionally, and I mean you could put any one of these on camera right now and be like, oh cool, we've got our little got a Shiba Inu show your little cute Doge puppy, and all of a sudden the likes come pouring in. It gets its own Instagram account, and before you know it, people are asking you to make an OnlyFans for your dog, right? Like, come on, this place it's clown town. What's going on with
Oh
the
man,
world, right?
yep.
Like, where we're like, okay, like maybe go find somebody in your own life to go give that attention to, and come to this place to maybe learn something and build some
Yeah.
community.
So
So
where
yeah.
so where are you? So let's talk about real quickly. Let's tell the viewership where are you in terms of social media, and then on top of that question, tell me what you think of this. If part of where you're at is TikTok, tell me why TikTok feels like it can be so toxic sometimes, or am I the only one that feels that way?
Oh, trust me, you're not.
Yeah, so I made a TikTok. Gosh, I guess a year and a half ago. That might have been 2 years ago. And then
Okay.
I pretty much left it untouched. I've got a couple of crypto things there, but I mean, according to Ken Bosak, I've got legacy crypto media because I think I published something in 2017 that mentioned crypto, and then I actually started like really getting after it in like 2018.
Right.
But I just, I went ahead and I went and claimed the whatever the username, right? Mind Your Biz. I didn't want somebody else to squat on it, so I
Right.
grabbed it and I uploaded a couple of things. Pretty much left it alone for a while because nobody was making crypto content on TikTok at the time. I was that early to it, and I thought, I don't really want to build this up yet. I don't see it just yet. Maybe this will turn into something, but it could be like Vine too, right? Like this could be gone in 18 months.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah, like I just didn't invest a whole lot of time into that. But so as far as there being like toxicity, man, the short form platforms like Vine before it, they always get toxic faster because the content window is shorter. You have to get your hook into your audience faster. You have to make more of an emotional impact. Like if people don't laugh, like literally laugh or cry by the end of your video, you failed because they're never coming back. Like that's short
Yeah.
form. That's
I-
ultra short form.
I never thought of that, and then I think to add on top of that, I think the crazy thing too is like you don't have the opportunity. So when we're on here on YouTube, for example, and we're having a conversation, if people stick around and see the entire conversation, it's like looking at a zoomed in version of a video where you can take one little piece out of it and you can say, man, that guy's a real scumbag, and it's like, wait a minute. Did you hear what was said before that or
I
after
mean,
that?
but Nick, he is a real scumbag.
Right.
Wait, whose
Gotcha.
meat are we talking about? I got to backpedal because there are lawsuits out in the wild. We know there are lawsuits out in the wild right now.
Yeah, so I totally hear what you're saying. That short form does really almost encourage that because they have to make the impression has to be made very short, and then the responses are very. It's like what's the what do you have 100 characters or something to respond on some of these posts? It's really short, so I totally
that's why you get a lot of that kind of like shit content on there where people are just pumping and shilling things and saying, hey, this is the next 100x whatever, because that's the only thing that grabs people's attention and actually gives them the performance. So that's where things get real crazy real quick.
Yeah, well, it gets really tribal too, man. Like, so I mean, like you're saying, right? So you produce something that somebody doesn't like, they call you out for it, and then if you just let it stand, it's viewed as weakness, right? So then it invites more bullying. So then all the rest of the sharks start to circle. It's like you either got a GTFO or you have to punch one of them on the nose, right? Like that's just the law of the wild. So you can't sit still when that stuff is happening. Before long, you got all these little brawls, right? With all these little predators trying to circle and people trying to break free, and then new circles of predators forming around them, and it's the worst of like human behavior and expressed as tribalism.
Oh yeah, definitely, dude. So what brought you into crypto? What really got you and say, when did you get into crypto, by the way, before I even asked that question? What year did you get into crypto?
So I had my first exposure to crypto. It must have been 2012 or 2013. I mean, we all lived this shared experience, right? Where it was out there. We may have heard of it here or there. Maybe we knew somebody who was kind of like already had a position in it, or got Mount Goxed or whatever. They told us their sob story later. And that for me was in my family. Thank goodness. I had a brother that was getting heavily involved in it and built mining pools at the time. It was actually a much more technical thing. And so, I've got a couple brothers who were full stack developers. I'm not fancy like that. They write code. I'll occasionally pretend to on my channel, like, hey, let's look at this GitHub repository. Yeah, I don't know what I'm doing. But they were building this multi-coin mining pool at a time when that was actually a very difficult thing to do, right? There wasn't just like open source code that you could take and you could fork and you could make your own. You had to actually kind of write some things from scratch, and they did. And so they would tell me about this and say, okay, we're really excited about this project, and there's this fork of Bitcoin. Litecoin looks pretty promising. I mean, they call it silver to Bitcoin's gold. This is all prior to Ethereum, mind you, but I was sidelined, right? I was kind of like, I wasn't even warming the bench. Seriously, I was spectating. And just kind of saying like, all right, that's cool. Tell me more about it. I want to hear all about it. But they really tried to explain to me at a deep level, like about the white paper from Satoshi, about the economics. Several members of my family were kind of had libertarian leanings. My wife and I were Ron Paulites since like 2006. So we were like, I'm all about it, right? Audit the Fed, right? At the time, right? That was the message. So we're like, okay, this kind of resonates. And we all lived through 2008 where it was like, everything sucked for everybody who was working. It resonated when I heard them talk about cryptocurrencies and especially Bitcoin. And then I heard them say things like, there's this new thing called an ICO. I'm like, oh, an ICO. Is that like an IPO, but a coin? Oh, yeah, it's funny. That's cute. Is that a crypto thing? Cool. I just didn't get it yet, right? But they were telling me, like at that time, about the Ethereum launch, and I heard them say like, I don't know if I should do it. It could be a scam. This guy Vitalik was, he was writing these articles about Bitcoin before, and he tried to make this project called Colored Coins. Anyway, I got the full story, right? Like, because at least one of my siblings is like super autistic, and so it's like if you let him, he never stops. So he told me everything about cryptocurrency. That's what I'm trying to say. Long story short,
right.
Everything there is to know. I got the full like autistic download, and just is what it is, man. I'm saying that out of love. It just takes one to know one. Yeah. So like I heard all about it for a while, and I just didn't act, bro. I took so long, and how
long did you take?
I took until 2016.
Okay.
And to start saying like, okay, I'm going to start with mining. So I dipped my toes in the water. And then in 2017, when it became undeniable, I was like, I'm putting my money into this because I see the runaway price action where there's not time left to mine. I've got to start putting money directly into the native asset. So
So so on the front end, you said you dipped your toes in, starting with mining. So we've got a lot of people in our following for sure that are beginners. So can you explain a little bit, like, what does that look like? You have let's say you are a beginner right now and you're going to dip your toes again into mining. What does that look like? What I think a lot of people are like, yeah, I think I know what mining is and what's happening here, but what's that look like?
It's a great question. Yeah, because most people, if you pay attention to the big narratives on like the major outlets, especially the mainstream media, what you're going to read and hear is like, oh my gosh, mining is wasteful and it's going to destroy the environment, and every single NFT that's minted is equivalent to burning down 3 trees in the rainforest. It's just,
Right.
it's bad. So thank you for asking. To the audience, it's not that bad, really. Take a deep breath. And I've got a couple of visual aids here to show a little bit about this, or some resources that I can show with the screen share in a minute.
Awesome.
But proof of work mining, by any other name, is as simple as using computer hardware, whether it's the processor of a phone or a tablet, or like a single board computer. Here's a little Raspberry Pi that's all built up, some custom stuff built around it, or a laptop or a gaming PC.
Okay.
Any one of these sort of hardware profiles, they could do proof of work mining, where in order to validate the transactions and create the next block in a blockchain, they use the computer power, that whether it's the CPU or the graphics processor, to guess the hash that corresponds to the right outcome that will then seal that block. And I don't know if I'm losing you guys, but it's just
No,
a
no,
lot
I got you.
Yeah, it's just a lot of guesses really fast. People say, "Oh, it's like solving complex math equations." That's not quite right. Strictly speaking, that's not technically correct.
It's a big guessing game to get that
Yes.
hexadecimal dash, right?
Yes.
Or hash, right?
You got it. That's exactly
Okay.
right. Yeah, it's really more like millions of guesses
How
per
many
second.
times can I guess?
Yeah,
guess,
who can
and
guess
then,
faster?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
that's how you get the more computing power, the more guesses you get in before
So
you get
on that,
like
let me ask you. So I know that's how Bitcoin mines. When you're talking about ASIC mining versus GPU mining, and you start getting into the technical side of things like that, is actually proof of work mining all done in the way that you just explained, or is it totally different going from Bitcoin to Dogecoin to whatever it is? You know what I mean? Whatever it is that you're mining.
Yeah, that's a great question. So in a way, it's all the same.
Okay.
In a way. So there are some hashing algorithms. The guesses that piece of hardware would make would be changed based on the hashing algorithm. The one that Bitcoin uses is now so specialized that it requires application specific integrated circuits, ASICs. Like they're specialized. That's all it means, is that they're specialized. So we can't use general purpose hardware. You could never mine Bitcoin on a phone, for example. It's just not going to be profitable, because the algorithm that's used to create those guesses, like you said so well, it's just too heavy duty on a phone compared to what those machines can do. They just blow it out of the water. But there are some other hashing algorithms that are designed so that only a CPU can do them on a phone or on a Raspberry Pi or on a laptop. So coins such as Monero, they use a different hashing algorithm that is designed to be locked into CPUs, like what you have on a desktop or what you have on a server. And
that's what
in
you
some
would
cases,
call like ASIC resistance.
Yeah, it definitely is. I mean, it's not without its problems. There are some attack vectors there. There are some issues with like zombie farming and botnets, and would be bad actors from like the nation state level who can, who may have an interest in like taking over like, that unused compute power that AWS has lying around. Like, if you ever wonder why, for example, like Slack and and Netflix and everything had that little blinking outage, may well be from somebody who just decided they really wanted to mine Monero on AWS. We don't know. Truth is stranger than fiction, my brothers. It happens.
Yeah, I no doubt there. So you say you got into mining. Do you do any staking at all, or you just strictly mining?
Yeah, I think right now I'm having to think about it. I do some liquidity providing on DEXs and AMMs, and staking also. I mean, that'd be like, so if you guys don't mind me asking, do you each work day jobs? Do you have a job outside of crypto right now,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
are you full time crypto?
No. I have a full-time job. I'm a software
Yeah.
developer.
Yeah. And then
Cool.
I've got, I own a construction company. Yeah.
Killer. All right. So specifically, I think that's great because you got like materials costs and really, I apologize. I'll rip your profit margins last year.
Yeah.
I've seen the lumber costs, man.
Nuts. Yeah.
Yeah. So it'd be like, so say for example that you're up whatever 10, 15K in a specific area of your materials costs.
Okay.
And if you thought you could, if you thought you had, if you were far ahead enough of where you needed to buy materials, purchase materials for whatever the next business cycle is, whether it's a couple of weeks or a quarter or whatever,
Right.
it'd be crazy not to invest it in some way, right? Like if
Right.
it's more than you need for your personal expenses and it's above and beyond your material costs, like why wouldn't you invest, right? Like
Right.
cash is king for certain things, but when you've got too much, it's worthless, right? It's just
Right.
losing value the longer you leave it alone.
Yep.
The same is true with certain cryptos. And it's not that it's true because you're like losing value, but you are leaving like atomic units on the table, we'll say, because you can't say like dollars, but like whatever. You're leaving Satoshis on the table because if you leave, to use a bad example, one full Ethereum. If you got one full Ethereum worth of something that could be put into a DeFi contract that gives you yield and you don't, well, the opportunity cost is whatever that, like, 0.1 or 0.15 ETH that could have come out on the other side,
Yeah.
right? Like, it'd be crazy not to invest it. And in the case of cryptos, we stake too. That's a way to just like get stuff yield for you. Like Robert Kiyosaki, right? Like every one of your dollars is a little, it's a soldier ready to fight for you.
Yeah, you want to have the assets working for you. I totally agree with you.
Yeah.
So you're mining, and is the goal. I started to ask you this before the stream, but is your goal to actively mine a certain number of different assets and accumulate those assets, or is your goal more like are you actively trading those when they come in? Are you then just converting them into Bitcoin and ETH? Like, tell me what that looks like if you don't mind me asking.
Yeah, no, I don't mind at all. So why don't I do this? I threatened to give you guys a visual aid. So why don't I go ahead and show
Oh
you?
yeah, let's do it. Let's do it.
I'll show you a
Yeah, go
paper
ahead.
tracker right now. This is not my portfolio, but this is what I show in my live streams. And
Okay.
you mentioned before, Nick, I go hard on those live streams. So here's
Yeah, for sure.
oh man, you know what? I went split screen on there, and there we go. Screen 2 done. Okay, should be sharing, I think.
Yep.
All right,
There
cool.
it is.
So this is just CoinGecko. It's, exotic CoinGecko. You guys have never seen this before. Woo! All right. But there's a portfolio tracker function, and on my show, I do a paper tracker
Okay.
where we put $1,000 into all kinds of assets, but we focus on GPU and ASIC mineable assets. I've got various different. You see these sub portfolios.
Oh, you can
for
do.
hard
I
drive.
didn't know you could do that, and I didn't know you could do that in CoinGecko. You can specify how it is mined.
Yeah. Oh well, no, not necessarily. So this is where I put in a little bit of elbow grease for my audience.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I thought you were pulling up like literally like you could just like pull it down and say, okay, what are all the assets that are GPU mined? Okay, boom. I thought that's what you were saying.
Yeah, so they do have some categories for stuff like that. They did before. I never found it to be very useful when
Gotcha.
CoinGecko did it, so I just did the curation by hand. Plus,
Cool.
we've got an audience that, like, in some cases that we go back years and they help get me exposure to certain projects. Point is that some of these different assets can be mined with a hard drive, some can be mined with a CPU on your laptop, others can be mined with those application-specific integrated circuits, others can be mined with really geeky hardware called an FPGA. It's a lot more freaky. It's the kind of stuff that will burn your house down if you don't know what you're doing with it. And then we've got these other sides of the portfolio, including the junk drawer, which is just like, it's just whatever we want to throw in there.
Yeah.
But point is, with the GPU mining portfolio, we put $1,000 in at a specific date, and then we let it ride, all of them. We let it ride to just kind of show these are your winners, these are your losers. And some people, even though they like really love projects like this one, Haven, or like Zero, which currently on GPUs returns a decent profit day over day, it wouldn't have been a good coin to mine and then let ride. And then we proved that by having a portfolio here. So yeah, as far as to answer your question a little more directly, what do I do? Man, I'm always trying to get educated. I'm trying to make sure that I make better decisions because this is just one side of a portfolio that you could use proof of work to obtain right, at a discount because you're using hardware to get more coins,
Yeah.
just for the cost of electricity.
So does
And
the so on the mining front, I guess I want to jump on what you just asked or what you just said. You said, it's profitable because you're using hardware. Tell the viewers what you would believe to be right now the most cost effective like setup in terms of, okay, just the regular person, they're going to Google some stuff, they're going to YouTube some stuff, they're going to look into it, but they want to start mining, they want to do something that makes sense, and they don't want to spend 10 grand, 100 grand, whatever on a setup. What would it be? CPU, GPU? And if so, is there a certain asset that you would recommend?
wow, yeah. So I've got a couple of let me show you this portfolio real fast. I'll cut to the
Yeah,
chase here.
cool.
So top asset, if you've got a GPU lying around, top asset that returned the highest return on investment was Flux. If you had been able to mine roughly $1,000 worth of this coin, or even just purchase, however you obtained it, get about $1,000 by the end of May, you'd be over 8,000 in your profit margin.
Heck yeah.
It did all right, right? It did all right, and it's got room to breathe still. Still under $1 billion market cap. If you're into unit bias, if that dictates some of your decisions, it's under $2, right? So people who retail at home who's saying like, oh, I can't buy it because it's they didn't get the memo, yeah, right?
Yeah.
They didn't realize you could buy a fraction of a Bitcoin or a fraction of Ethereum, whatever.
Right.
So, but that
Yeah, you'd be
dominates the retail
surprised how
mindset.
many people don't get that.
Exactly. But here's the thing. We see with Shiba Inu, we see with Dogecoin, we see with so many other meme coins that mentality has dominated retail to the tune of tens of billions of dollars
Yeah.
of fresh capital flowing into the market cap. Right?
Fact.
So we can't ignore it. Like even if we're more educated, we've got to think like the noobs. So yeah, I look at this and say, okay, it's already run up nearly 10x, and in fact, it went way higher than that at its peak. But run up nearly 10x, and it's still got room to ride. Like, it's got headroom. So just for your audience, there's a little bit of alpha, and I mentioned this on BitBoy's channel months ago before it ran up.
What,
So-
Flux specifically?
Yeah, Flux specifically.
And you said that's a GPU mine. That's GPU mining.
Yes. So
What's a GPU miner cost? Just like I know they can be probably all over the place, but what would something like that look like?
yeah, they really
Depends
do.
the GPUs you buy.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's exactly right. And I think as far as right now, if somebody's looking at trying to capitalize for a GPU mining operation, buyer beware. Whenever it happens, we're waiting for the other shoe to drop, right? If we continue down this downward channel, because we've been bouncing down, right?
Right.
Finding support for a while. So like, I'm not a technician. I don't pretend to have like price targets there, but I mean, I know a trend when I see one, and we're sliding down this chute, right? Like chutes and ladders. We got to come back up, I think. But we don't know that we're going to break to the upside. If that continues, though, then I don't think anybody wants to get saddled like a $5,000 or $15,000 mining rig, right?
Right.
So I would say if you're looking at GPU mining and you're maybe already in the market for, say, like a gaming rig, just get one that has an overbuilt GPU in it. You're not going to regret it because you're going to use it for video games anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Or if you need it as like we don't do home theater PCs anymore, I know, at home, but if you had something that was like attached as like a part of the entertainment center for the family, maybe the kids are gaming on it and you're gaming on it, then like you're not going to lose, right? Family's happy, wife's happy because the family's happy, whatever. Girlfriend's happy because you're not like, whatever, saying mean things, you big jerk. Play the video games, right? There's a pacifier. But like, yeah, it's a win-win, right? Like you can get something that you intend to use for a different purpose, and then the other 23 GD hours of the day when you're not gaming, let it mine. It's that simple, I think.
Yeah.
That's
So-
awesome.
Yeah, I think most people overthink it, and they say like, oh, okay, well, if I'm going to do this, I got to do it right. All right, I got to get like one of those fancy little like aluminum extrusion frames, and I got to line up all the GPUs all nice and neat, and they all have to have RGB because that's going to make them hash more. I'm going to earn more money if they have RGB on them, for sure. We overthink it. If you're in the market for some kind of hardware, just get a slightly overbuilt GPU and a slightly overbuilt CPU in that rig, and you pay the extra money for those parts, not for extra RAM, not for extra storage, not for a fancier case that has RGB, not for an AIO or a liquid cooling loop. Get a beefy CPU and a beefy GPU, and make sure that they run on air, so you save a little more money. But yeah, go really like swing for the fences on performance in those two categories.
Yeah, it's crazy how quickly GPU price skyrocketed when crypto mining became a big thing, and it's been so difficult for most people for regular people to buy GPUs in the first place because they just get out of stock all the time.
Yeah. So Rob Ward is asking, what's the DAG size? And for the benefit of your audience, they need to know that DAG stands for uh, acyclic graph. Gosh darn
Directed
it.
acyclic graph.
Thank you. Directed acyclic graph. Man, I was going to try to flex on him, and there you go.
You were 2/3 of the way there, man.
Yeah.
You were there.
Yeah, right. Actually, in mining, that's not that bad. I'd take 2/3 of the block reward any day. But
I'll bet.
but as far as DAG size goes, like as for Ethereum right now, I don't have the exact number, but it's over 4 gigabytes. And why that matters is that if you're looking for a GPU with the intent to mine Ethereum for however long it is mineable, you need to have more than 4 gigs of memory on that video card. It should be ideally like 6 or 8, maybe even more. So yeah, that is a bit of a limitation there. So yeah, you have to be sure that if you're going to get a GPU because you actually want to mine with it, then make sure that it's the beefiest GPU you can get. In practical terms, for a model that's like really modern that you might want to use for video gaming, that'd be like an RTX 3070, I think. That as a baseline, even on the mobile edition on a laptop, comes with a minimum of 6 gigs of VRAM. I don't want to get too much into speeds and feeds, make your audience feel kind of woozy, but like,
yeah, it gets crazy real quick.
Yeah.
So what do you do throughout the bear market, right? Throughout the bear market, obviously, the rewards are down. You're making a lot less money, but the electricity costs are still there. So what do you do to deal with that problem?
That's a mindset problem. So we went from 0 to life coach in like
that's fantastic though. You're probably like right on with that too.
Went 0 to life coach in one intention, but seriously though, if you just reframe it and think, okay, I'm getting myself a dollar cost average subsidy, or I'm getting myself an acquisition subsidy by mining, as long as you got any amount that is being taken off the cost to acquire those assets, you've got discounted Ethereum. You've got discounted. Gordon is saying in the chat, Ethereum Classic, for example, if that's what you choose to mine. Discounted Flux, discounted Ravencoin, whatever you're choosing to mine, you got a discount on it. So even if you don't fully cover the costs with your mining, you did get that crypto directly, without KYC, nobody's permission, no government oversight. Nobody telling you how to spend it. Nobody telling you when you have to sell it. Nobody telling when your taxes are due on it. And even if they did want to tell you when your taxes are due on it, they can pound sand unless they can crack your private keys.
So that's what I'm talking about, Nick. That's what we got to get into.
I know. Listen. Maybe we'll have that full conversation, maybe a little bit off stream or whatever. But we definitely like the idea on that. So let me ask you this, Seth. I guess 2 things for like the average person that's looking and saying, you know what, this is interesting. I like what Seth's talking about here. I'm interested. So you said a gaming rig, and then my other question is, what about a phone? So if a gaming rig, give me an asset that you could mine, when you're not playing games, right? In the background, give me an asset that you feel like would do well with that. And then number 2, can you mine anything that you are aware of or that you like to do with a phone?
Yeah, so you can mine things with a phone. I wouldn't mine with the phone that you have active. I'd try to look at anything that is already retired. If you're the sort of person that holds on to previous phones and has a little phone graveyard next to your desk or something, or you've turned it into a giant tower, whatever.
I still have my sidekick.
Bruh. That probably still runs Doom too. Probably runs Doom better than whatever. Better than your first PC that played Doom. But so yeah, as far as being able to mine on a phone, ideally you'd want to mine some kind of an asset that is CPU mineable. I'm going to go ahead and pull up. So I've got on my screen over here. I think you guys still have access to it.
Yeah.
I've got a different side of this portfolio that is for CPU mining, and I'd say on a phone, if you have a bunch of them lying around, you might be able to mine Monero, WowNero, and possibly Veriscoin. You wouldn't do so very profitably, but for the amount of electricity that they consume, it's definitely better than just leaving them around doing nothing, right? They're just going to continue to become more and more obsolete and eventually not power back on. So, whatever, get them get them hooked up to a little like USB hub, right, for power, and put them back to work.
Okay, and so this is where, like, I don't understand some of the technical sides. I'm probably overthinking this. So there, when you're mining and this is happening, and you are producing your mining rewards, your block rewards, whatever, do you have a wallet attached to that, or how does the transaction work? Because I know what people are probably thinking, because I'm thinking, okay, this is fantastic. I've now spent minimal costs on whatever it is that I on the front end, and then now I've got to be able to cash this in, so to speak. So what does that look like?
Yeah,
How do
so
you do that?
you do have your wallet attached to the algorithms, to the pools where you're mining from. I know that a little bit. I originally got into crypto because I wanted to get into mining back in 2017, and I pulled out a loan to buy mining rigs for Bitcoin. And then I said, wait a minute, I live in a studio apartment in college. I can't put these ASICs in here. I'll burn up and die. So I threw that idea out the window.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. So yeah, as far as that goes, I pulled this up on the screen because this is the official tutorial series that was created by HiveOS. They wrote this, and then they asked me to produce these. Gosh, in October of 2018. There I am with hair. It was before I gave up. So yeah, I just started like shaving it, whatever. But
I didn't even recognize you without the hat on, my dude.
It was a different look for sure. That's what I call the Microsoft trainer aesthetic. We had standards. It's okay, man. It's okay. But I'm not going back to prison. You can't force me to. So this is a good tutorial series though that tells you a bit of the basics. Okay. And it was written directly by the HiveOS team, and it shows you how to set up what's called a flight sheet and how to point your mining rigs to a crypto wallet that is not necessarily on the same device you're mining with. In fact, from an operational security standpoint, from a security privacy standpoint, you definitely don't want to have your wallet hosted on the device that is mining. Because there could be some issues there if for whatever reason there's some third party, like your friend, right? We talked about him before the stream. Your friend who's like the network engineer, Wunderkind, right? Guys like that who are like, hey, I just happened to be snooping the traffic coming off of port such and such from your home router, right? Like that guy, he's going to be able to see like the traffic coming off that network kind of looks like it's mining to a mining pool. Those are the kinds of people that exist everywhere in crypto, and if they see a mining rig somewhere that they can somehow gain access to, the first thing they're going to do is try to look for wallets on that machine if they wind up owning that machine. So not to get everybody paranoid, but there are dangerous people in the world, scary people in the world. And in crypto, I mean, man, they got incentive. So
people don't understand how crazy it is. The things that people can do on computers and through networks. They don't need to be next to you. They don't need to know where you live. From the other side of the world, they can find your machine. They can get into it, get complete access. And it is wild. People don't understand how crazy it can get.
Yeah, and it gets worse when you have a mining piece of software on that machine that is then sending a consistent set of amount and type of packets out of that machine over your network. It creates something of a signature that people like that who are really well practiced, they know what to look for, and they'll sniff out mining operations all around the world, including your basement.
Yeah, they do. And the crazy thing is that you don't always need to have people that are really well practiced in those kind of hacking methods. Hackers sell their own tools that they make, and then anyone that just goes out and buys the tool, just click here, click there, and the tool does everything for you.
Miguel, I'd just like to ask, just a side note, how do you have so much information on hacking? I'm just kind of curious because I don't have any of this information. I could talk to you about selling drugs, but just because I heard from a guy, right?
I heard it from YouTube. That's how I got
it. That's too funny.
Yeah. It's like I plead the fifth, but you might want to change those PJs you've been wearing, Nick. Don't ask me how I know.
No doubt. I totally hear you.
So Seth, I wanted to ask you, do you have any thoughts on proof of stake versus proof of work? Do you have a decentralization versus centralization problem, or you think either one's good, or you have a proof of work is better kind of situation?
How much time you have?
Oh, we got time. Let's hit it.
We got time.
Okay, cool. Yeah, great. Here's why I ask. We can go full tinfoil hat, or we can talk about the basics. What's
tinfoil
best?
hat.
Let's do
Let's
tinfoil
go there.
hat.
Let's go there
we like
straight
the
ahead.
tinfoil hat for sure.
Okay, cool. All right, so tinfoil hat. Here's where I go with the concept of proof of stake versus proof of work. Proof of stake is controlled by those who hold the greatest stake. It stands to reason, right? Like it is a stake weighted system. So the larger whales control the network, or at least they control what happens through the validators by staking those coins to a validator. Even if they're non-technical, even if they don't know what the validator code looks like, even if they don't even know how to set up, any half of what happens in a blockchain, all they have to do is know how to keep private keys secure, or pay somebody to keep private keys secure for them and do what they ask them to do. This causes a problem when you have nation state level actors who can literally print money legally and can use that money to go onto any exchange or create derivatives, or we haven't even seen this yet. They can literally just declare one day, you know what we're going to do with our next round of quantitative easing? You know what we're going to do our next round of Burr? We're going to just try something. It's crazy. We know it's crazy, but we're going to do a CBDC. We're just going to call it USD. It's not USDC. It's not USDT. It's literally USD. And we're going to just print up, some test amount, not too much, nothing more than we've ever done before, just $1 trillion. That's double ETH, bro. It's double Ethereum, right? Like if they just decided we're going to mint $1 trillion worth of USD coin on Ethereum.
Okay.
Well, guess what? We love the decentralization of tools like the Uniswap protocol. We love the decentralization of tools like Tornado Cash that totally erases the history, right, of those transactions up to that point. Yep. Well, we don't love it when companies or when individuals and when groups like the federal government says like, you know what, we want to create value from nothing. We want to press another zero on our ledger and make something appear. Well, they get to do that by minting a smart contract and minting that corresponding coin supply. So my tinfoil hat goes here with proof of stake versus proof of work. If that worst case scenario happened, if it did, right? Dylan's like, bro, full 10. Yes, absolutely. We're going to protect your neck too, right? Like make a little like scarf out of that stuff. So just know, I realize that this is like, we're way off the res right now.
But listen, I want to tell you as not to cut you off, but like, this is Miguel and I have a what if Wednesday, right? And we talk about like, what if the CIA created Bitcoin, and like, we do like what if stuff. So what you're saying right now really resonates with me. Continue.
100%.
For sure.
Okay.
I'm with it. Okay.
Yeah, and so I think you guys see where I'm going with this. If they had the ability, like in their last round of just money printing within the Fed money printing program, I mean, they've already printed trillions, as we know. A huge percentage of the current USD supply has been printed in the last 12, 18 months. Yeah. So if they just said like, we're not even going to go as crazy as we did last time around. We're only doing $1 trillion, right? They can just plop $1 trillion worth of CBDC, ERC20 coins that they control. Send that over to 1-inch DEX, put in your limit orders, and at any acquisition price, they won't even care. Any acquisition price, they can outspend anybody else on the network to acquire all of the available supply on Ethereum. And when they do, they don't even have to get to own a majority stake to be able to really wreak havoc on the validator network by having so much of the supply. They just say like, you know what, we really feel like shutting down this validator. Oh, you guys want to do that? Nope. We voted no. Yeah, we just said no again. These are your rules, not ours.
Would we not know that something like this happened?
Oh, we would. But here's the other problem. People say, well, just fork away. Oh, like you did with the DAO hack. How'd that turn out?
Yeah, that's a good point.
No, it's politically, it's inconvenient for anybody in crypto to just keep forking away. We can't just keep forking away.
Right.
So, yeah, and then roll back the chain. Okay. How did that turn out for the last chain that did that? Yeah. It's just these completely shatter the narratives of decentralization, and proof of stake introduces an attack vector that plays right into the hands of crypto's worst enemy, centralized finance.
That's so crazy.
Yeah, man. That's why I'm a Bitcoin maxi, bro. I'm all about Bitcoin and proof of work. Everything else, I'll dabble in it. It's not my.
But hold on. Let me challenge that a little bit. So, because I'm an ETH maxi, right? And everybody knows ETH's my girlfriend, everybody knows, right? But let me challenge the idea on that real quick.
What'd you call him off stage?
Oh
What'd you
yeah,
call
an
him off
ETH
stage?
head. An
ETH
ETH
head.
head.
There you go.
Yeah.
No,
Or an
no.
F head. F head is how you said it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
It's okay, man.
all right. So what you're ultimately talking about is, all right, they're able to print money and they are able to then take to hold enough stake to be able to make decisions on the network. So why then is that any different from this same government that we're talking about, whoever that mysterious government may be, uh, buying literally just an ungodly amount of mining equipment of the highest caliber, the highest tier of ASIC miners, for example, and they just completely take over essentially the hash rate? Why could they not do that?
That's exactly the right question, and here's exactly why. Supply chain has hard limits in the real world, right? So, and you don't have those hard limits when you're like, have you guys ever set up just for kicks? Ever
Oh,
set
you're
up an
saying to get
ERC20?
you're saying to get the actual equipment and setting it up. You're saying the supply chain there in terms of doing that.
Yeah. So just there's a hard limit. So when you're trying to get an application specific integrated circuit system, let's take it one step further. Let's extend that, right? Because it only takes about $8 to $10 million to design, fab, and do the first run of your own custom ASIC. Only, right? Like we got that line.
Is that it?
But
Yeah.
I mean,
right.
we got
Here,
trillions
hold on,
on the printer, so
Right, exactly. So for them, it's like, dude, not even a drop on the bucket, not even a rounding error, not even the ballpoint pens in one wing, right?
Exactly.
Of the Pentagon. So like, yeah, they deal with this, no problem. But here's the other issue: the cost. Yeah, sure, not an issue. The hard limits of what those factories can produce and turn around in a certain amount of time. So you may have to tell them like, all right, we need a bitstream developer for us to be able to create an FPGA version of this, like our test run version of this. And now we're going to we're going to have to send these designs over here. Now we have to work with whoever is going to fab these individual ASIC chips. It might be Samsung. Who knows? Maybe we luck out and they get a die shrink and they're able to actually produce it back here stateside in the facility that's just outside of Austin. A little clean facility fab outside of Austin. Which God bless America. I love that it's there, but we're not always so lucky, right? More likely than not, it goes over to TSMC, which is always backed up, right? Where are they? In Taiwan. Or it goes back over to mainland China. That's where it's all produced. Doesn't even matter where it was designed. Doesn't even matter if it's better. It is fabbed there. It's funny. Arnie asks about, do you think China just makes their own hardware?
Yeah.
It is fabbed there. A lot of it is fabbed and created there. Ask me how I know, because I've seen pallets of the stuff show up at mining operations, and we've unboxed them, and it smelled like China. Okay, it just did.
Right.
So yeah, but I mean, this is a harsh reality for mining. Is that you like on one level you can have a sort of nationalist pride. You can hope that the place where you live will maintain its best characteristics because we're fighting to have network dominance. With our hash rate here, or maybe in Canada, right? Our neighbors to the north, our friends.
Right.
But the reality is, all that hardware, generally speaking, the majority of the hardware, it is manufactured, minimum manufactured, but sometimes also fabbed, and sometimes, yes, also even designed in China.
Right.
So yeah, there are hard limits to how fast we can get that.
Same thing then. I mean, I don't care where it's from. What stops them? So ultimately, I have this idea, tinfoil hat time for me. I have this idea that China didn't actually ban crypto mining as much as they said, hey, we're banning it. Then they dispersed. I actually just did a video on this recently. Then they dispersed all of their people out, to different places, Texas being one of them, right? But in the United States. And basically, I feel like they still have the ownership over the mining operations, but disperse them all over the world and basically have their own little own little cells of spies. So my question is, if everything's being produced over there, what's to stop China from saying, you know what? We want to take over 51%, 60%, 70%, 80% of the hash rate, and we've got the ability to make the money printer go burr, and we're producing the hardware over here. Is there anything that stops it ultimately that makes it like, nope, not happening?
Yeah, I mean, historically, what stopped it so far? I mean, there's been accusations that the majority of the hash rate was predominantly in China,
Hmm.
or in the surrounding territories, and
Yep.
that was largely correct for a time. There was a time where it was bordering on 70%, right,
Yeah.
of all the hash rate that was definitely in China. But
Hmm.
then you also consider that there are pools, right, pooled mining,
Yeah.
where like instead of us mining directly to the network and querying a node on the network to be as a miner to say like, okay, I'm contributing and I'm guessing I'm going to help create the next block. We're mining to pools, which are
Like
basically just,
F2 pool.
yep. And they're like giant fancy proxies that we all mine to. And then they talk to the network. We're not actually even mining directly to the network. We're
Okay.
actually mining through this centralizing force called a pool. And that's just as big a threat as anything else. Well, guess where a lot of the pools are still headquartered? Guess where all of
Yeah.
the mind share of
Right.
the leadership for some of these pools still resides? Yeah, it's still China. They've still got a lot more advanced work put into this than people who are just now catching on and saying like, okay, well, we got to do something about the centralization. It's like, bro, you got to get up a lot earlier, like 3 years earlier. We really got to get up earlier
Yeah.
to beat certain foes. So like,
Ultimately, it would have to be very, very coordinated to even attempt to move forward with that idea, even with the mining pools, right? Because now all of a sudden, once maybe a few people find out about it and they're like, wait a minute, this is not what I signed up for. Now all of a sudden you have people either spilling the tea, right? Spilling the juice, letting people know what's going on, or just backing out completely. Okay. All right. I was just curious because I was like, I know people talk. I've heard Miguel give crap about proof of stake, right? And how it's this centralized big evil thing, and ETH moving over to proof of stake is like this bad thing. It's not going to be good, and this, that, and the third. So I'm really, yeah, thank you for kind of laying that out there, because I didn't really
I mean,
have a good grasp on what would stop that from happening on either side of the ball.
yeah, man. Look at
yeah,
Solana, right? Solana, they're billionaires. They're all in it. That's why it's super centralized, and everyone's talking about it's the chosen one now. That it's going to be the ETH killer. Yada yada yada.
Yeah.
But yeah, billionaires and their money can do wild things.
So Sayer Smith says, "Where do I start learning about mining?" Pause real quick. Chat, if you are, if you haven't already, if you could X out of the live chat real quick, smash the likes. All of Mine Your Biz, all of Seth's information, at least for his YouTube. I'm not sure if he gave us something else or not, but at least his YouTube is down below in the information. So I think the answer to this, and I'll let Seth answer it, but I think the answer to this is you need to be subscribed to Mine Your Biz, right? Because he's teaching mining, right? So
yeah.
I don't know.
Well, to be clear, we also on my channel we have a strong emphasis on fundamental analysis for projects that a person might want to mine. Because
Okay.
at the end of the day, I mean, if you can turn on a space heater too, and it's kind of loud and it's kind of hot, and it's if you tell yourself if you plug your ears enough and you kind of squint, it looks like a miner, right? And it makes the room hot. So you have to know that you're mining something that you actually want to keep afterwards. Otherwise,
Yeah.
you're just spending electricity, making loud noises with those really really loud fans.
Yeah. Yeah. No doubt. No doubt. I feel you.
So before we get into a little bit deeper, so you're saying about decentralization versus centralization. Do you think the crypto space is too late for decentralization? Has it already been corrupted into a centralized way, but disguised under decentralization, right? And there's just nothing we can do about that, or is there hope?
I think there's hope. I mean, there's always hope, right? Like that's kind of the reality of this world, right? If we don't have hope, why are we getting out of bed every day? I think there's some hope somewhere. But as far as decentralization, I think that we're looking in some of the wrong places. I think that we're telling ourselves that decentralization comes from blockchain systems, which are really great at being public ledgers, and they're really great at some other things. Programmable money of Ethereum, I'll admit, the allure is it's there, right? We're seeing in DeFi, and now we're on DeFi Summer 2.0. It's come and gone. We're in DeFi Winter 2.0, which is far better than the last DeFi Winter, if I'm going to be honest. But
Right.
DeFi has been pretty great, right? Like
Yeah.
the yield available, like the instruments that are available. What schmuck would be leaving their value in US dollars or fiat when you could be earning yield with
Yep.
even just with stable coins? Like
Yeah.
Yes.
there's really no comparison there. But I think as far as decentralization goes, I don't think it's going to happen in cryptocurrencies. I think it's going to happen with privacy technology first. I think we keep telling ourselves like, oh yeah, I got to be decentralized. Okay, what did I just what's on my ledger right now? Holding your private keys on a phone that has an IMEI, an IMSI, a full system on a chip that isn't even controlled by Google or Apple. It's controlled by the major telcos. And you're leaving your private keys on this?
Well, I'm not.
Yeah, right. But somebody out there is. You know
Right.
somebody out there that you know is.
Yeah, definitely.
Oh yeah, yeah, no doubt. So I want to get into a little bit of where. So I know you're incredibly intelligent as it relates to the market as a whole, because, like you just said, that's part of understanding, what to mine and when it's a good opportunity to mine. So let's shift gears just a little bit. So we've talked about mining. We've talked about some opportunities that are available. Some of the different ways that mining can happen. What do you see the market looking like right now, man? Because Seth, I'll tell you, Miguel and I have this running back and forth thing going on where he calls me paper hands right now because I am under the my game plan right now is if we do drop sub 40, I think we are going to absolutely break down from there, and I would call bear market at that point. So ultimately, I guess what I'm saying is I have told our followers, that if we drop below 40K, if we close a day under 40K, I am actively going to be selling, right? So I guess my question to you is, what do you see this market looking like? I feel like you get a little bit different look at kind of how how things are coming in, but ultimately the output is still, hey, here's where we're at in the market. Where do you see things right now? What do you see happening? Because I sure didn't have a problem back in May with just absolutely, holding, not taking, not getting, wild out or whatever. And I'm having a problem right now. I think it's the timing. How do you feel about things?
My gosh, yeah, right. Like talk about a roller coaster, man. Recently with cryptocurrencies, right? Like it doesn't like we can't very neatly put any kind of like fractal patterns from previous bull runs or from previous sides of the market neatly onto what's happening right now, right? Like, so I hear what you're saying, man. It is kind of nerve wracking. Just as an aside, I just think it's hilarious. You mentioned paper hands, and just legit laugh out loud. Rob says, my keys are on paper. So maybe not paper hands, but paper wallets are a good idea, actually. So yeah, as far as like being able to read the tea leaves of the markets, man, I don't know. TA is something I just don't. I don't know that I fully believe in it. We haven't seen any kind of like really strong news, FUD or FOMO, either way, to really drive us from the state of fear that the market is in back up towards even neutrality, let alone like greed. So that's kind of more what I put more stock in is the fundamentals of projects and then how the market is feeling. Because I mean, you guys know, you're professionals. You've worked in other businesses. People buy emotionally. They sell emotionally too.
Yep.
Right? Yep. Like it's got nothing to do with logic at all. It's got nothing to do with reason at all. So. So that makes more sense to me to kind of just see like what are people reacting against? Like, for example, is the real estate bubble actually popping? Are people going to try to fly from one traditionally hard asset to a different one? Like, will there be a flight from real assets to digital assets?
Right.
That would be, I think, a stronger indicator for me to let me know, like, okay, well, maybe Bitcoin, and maybe we're not letting the air out of this bubble just yet. If there's air coming out of real estate, right? Like, because everybody had like irrational amounts of money that they made last year from just having dirt with sticks on top of it. So really, I mean, it's just bad. I'm sure there was some place in Malibu, California that had like a trailer on it that sold for over $1 million or $2 million. Like, the last real estate run up.
Yeah, real estate is crazy. So do you think we're going into an extended cycle? You think the time frame doesn't matter? We could be going into an extended cycle and we'll have another leg up in the market before the next Bitcoin happening?
I don't like making predictions, man. It's
not about making a prediction. Like, just you don't think we're going into a bear market, right? People have the time frame, right? Like Nick was saying, time frame. It's December. If we're not hitting parabolic tops, then it's time for calling a bear market is coming out soon. You don't buy into that.
I really don't. No, I think we've got a couple more months. But again, like I really can't stress that enough. If you want to hear God laugh, say you're making plans, right? Like,
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
like,
yeah,
so yeah, I'm just not. I don't even like going there. I don't want to tempt it. So, but in my gut tells me that we're probably not over yet. I know. Yeah, your audience is like, man, this guy's a terrible, terrible technical analyst. Yes, it's true. But my gut tells me like maybe we got a little bit more sideways crawl. Maybe we see more upward momentum. And it's not that I want to map previous halving cycles or previous bull runs onto what's happening right now, but the stock to flow model and the halving cycles, they've indicated that after every one of these 4-year cycles, we should see about an order of magnitude growth. And we're missing a zero. Like
yeah.
we don't have to go to 250K. We don't have to go to 400K. Like all these crazy mainstream media articles have been saying for months. But
Right.
we kind of need to cross 100K, I think, before we fully let the air out of this thing. You know, the bouncy house comes down, and we say like, okay, cool, we'll fold it away, and then we'll see you in 4 years. Like I really do think we need to cross those 6 figures.
Yeah.
And I've heard some other people, go bottom up instead and say like, okay, well, it always stays higher than the last all-time high. I don't know if that necessarily holds either. I really don't. The bare cost to produce, so the mean cost of production for Bitcoin right now is around 14K. It could absolutely drop to that level and a little below. It absolutely could. Anybody who says otherwise hasn't paid attention to what previous markets have taught us very clearly. Bitcoin mining, which is what secures the network and what it keeps the lights on, right? It keeps things going in Bitcoin land. Like Bitcoin mining has dropped below its profitability point, other than outside of just the most aggressively priced markets, right? The most lean markets. Like I'm talking like places like Venezuela, where you have unused power right next to a hydroelectric dam, right? Or Canada, right, where you could get surplus power from the utility if you just asked nicely and you knew somebody, like where power was literally free. These places floated the network for a while, and then other places where you could get your electricity for like 2.5 cents or 3.5 cents per kilowatt hour. It's like unicorn level power rates in some of these places, but like even with some of these places, when you're looking at 3.5 cent, 4.5 cent, 5 cent power, where it's still going to cost $14,000 to make one full Bitcoin.
Wow.
By running those machines, the most efficient ones, the most recent machines, you could still see it drop all the way to close to that level or below, because it has in the past. To believe that it just was totally different this time, I just don't. I don't know, man. Twice burned. Like I can't believe that. I can't bring myself to think that way again.
So let me ask you, we're talking about, you don't want to make predictions. Okay, cool. I'm down with that. But let me ask you this. You look at fundamental analysis, which is ultimately what you're saying. Hey, I'd rather look at that. How does your fundamental analysis affect what you are doing as it relates to your mining? Because I know when Miguel and I, when I'm looking at my long-term HODL portfolio, right, I make decisions, differently there than I am, like my alts that I for sure am going to be full on selling out of. What does that look like from a mining aspect? Because I got to believe that is a very similar, thought process. Like, okay, I want to have converted this to a stable coin, or I want to put this into Bitcoin, or how does the market determine what that looks like?
That's a tough one, man. Yeah, because we saw some pretty bad price action over the last couple of weeks, and we had a couple of the entries in our portfolio here. I'll share one if you guys want to pull that screen up.
Yeah.
But here on our CPU mining portfolio, Raptorium, it was turning at a profit from the initial input of about $1,000 end of May, which is how we've run this portfolio. It was showing a profit of nearly $50,000. And I mean, in that context, now these profits don't look so good, right? It would have been nice to take 5K off the top. Right? It wouldn't have been too much. Wouldn't have been greedy in retrospect. So I think one of the difficult things is that way too many miners, to answer your question more directly, this is why I started this series of content and why I put my foot down with my audience and said, nah, guys, we're not going to bury our heads in the sand. Like we can't. Ignorance isn't a strategy, but a lot of miners get caught in the mindset of HODL. right? Like, no, I'm just going to mine this one because I did the fundamental analysis. This one's really good. All I have to do is hodl, right? It's like, yeah, but if you did that with this coin, which has strong fundamentals, I've personally interviewed both sides of the team. They're solid developers. They've been at it for years, really good faith actors, and they're finally starting to see the hard work pay off. So the fundamentals are there here. I'm not saying that anybody has to go and like market dump their coins or, try to move the market by being irresponsible with how they take those profits. But you can see now that if you said like, well, fundamentals are good, I don't have to think anymore. Nah, man, you lost 50% of your portfolio.
Right.
That was dumb.
Right.
Like, no, think and look for when there's an appropriate time to take some profits and take some of those profits and then, heck, buy back in lower if you really want to. But yeah, don't leave money on the table. When you see that you're flush with profits, unless, maybe one exception, unless you're in building mindset and you're thinking, okay, well, I've got enough collateral now that maybe I can spin up a validator or a masternode somewhere else.
Okay.
And that'll generate more crypto for me passively. I'm all about that, right? Like, definitely get it to work more for you if you can. But that's just a different way of taking profits, right? By any other name, it's still taking profits.
Yeah, so it's ultimately just very, very similar to what we do on a regular basis. It's analyze the market where it's at. This makes sense to be in right now. I've made a bunch of profits here. Let me pull from there. I mean, it is ultimately just a different way of getting to that point. You're starting from putting money in on the front end to actually mine. And then on the other side, you've got a profit margin that you need to look at and say, hey, this was profitable. This one's super profitable. Time to pull and take profits. So it's ultimately, it sounds like it's the same thing as we look at on a regular basis.
Yeah, that's totally true. There's one thing that miners know that nobody else in crypto knows, though. And it's this. Getting to that $1,000 paper trade that I have in this portfolio, there are miners in my audience and myself, based on which asset it is, we didn't spend $1,000 to get that position.
Okay.
Right? We spent anywhere between 50 to maybe 250 on electricity, and that was it.
That's where it's fantastic.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So that multiple you saw there, it's like, it's way more than that 50x that it already did.
So everybody loves to hear, we always have people ask like, oh, like, give me a gem, give me this, give me, you know what I mean? Give me 100x gem, whatever. Let me personally ask you this. So this is from Miguel and I asking. Let's just say hypothetically, right, that one of our businesses or whatever just had like some capital that was just like sitting there, right, not doing anything. We it wasn't staked yet, it wasn't anything, and we're kind of working some things out. But we were like, you know what, we're thinking about maybe doing, looking into some mining. Is there anything in particular that right off the top of your head, like a quick answer that says, you know what, if you just want that passive income that's just sitting there and you're talking about, jumping into some mining, what would that be?
I think, I mentioned it before. I'd say take a look at your current production equipment that you have, because you're content creators. And so I know that you if you can, you like working with like a workstation PC, PC, right? So I'd say just like invest in the studio and then write that off at the end of the year on your taxes. You're already ahead of the game, right? So like take a business that you already own, and for you guys, knowing, like, having been able to chew the fat with you guys for a minute and like see that you guys get it, like you'll get this immediately. Get a write-off level piece of equipment for one of your businesses that you already have. In the case of Miguel, like maybe even get something that's like really high power and say like, hey, I've got to learn some machine learning libraries. I really need a GPU. pretty please, right? Like whatever it is, right? Like be like, no, I really need all those CUDA cores on this NVIDIA thing.
I need 10 GPUs.
You're right.
But is there a specific asset that you would say, hey, this one is essentially a very pretty simple to mine, and it's not, or are they all very similar in terms of the front end setup for the mining process? I know nothing about what that looks like.
Yeah, very similar. Very, very similar. But as far as there being like a safe, easy choice that may give you the opportunity to do fractional staking in the near future, Ethereum is pretty easy. It's an easy choice to make. Yeah, and it's it's steady. It's one of the tentpole cryptos. It's it's maintained that pressure against Bitcoin for a while now, and it may decouple again, right, and run away from that typical correlation that it has with Bitcoin. So. Yeah. I mean, I know you heard me make that like tinfoil hat attack, hypothetical against Ethereum, but I've got nothing against Ethereum, man. I use it quite frequently. It's a great asset. So yeah.
So, that being said, Bitcoin versus Ethereum, right? What do you think anything will ever take Bitcoin down, or will Bitcoin always remain number one?
Yes, I think that something can take Bitcoin down.
Like what?
So, for example, most people are not paying attention to how the Lightning Network is. First off, it's totally necessary to be able to get into full micropayments around the world, but it's a hugely centralizing force. And while we don't call it proof of stake, in a way it is, because you have to commit liquidity to a Lightning channel, and the liquidity has to be taken off of layer one. So, by any other name, it's proof of stake.
That's an interesting thought. I've not heard that.
Yeah,
Now,
that
here's
is-
the problem there. You get into a space where, again, we got way too many centralizing forces, that paired with custodial ownership of Bitcoin. Too many people giving up their keys in exchange for a tiny bit of yield over on Celsius, which, they're good actors, right? They mean well, but they're still giving up their crypto.
Yeah.
So those two forces right there, I mean, the U.S. government and others around the world, they've confiscated gold. They've confiscated precious stones. They've confiscated all kinds of wealth. If your crypto is on exchange, if your Bitcoin is on exchange, what's going to stop them from taking your Bitcoin?
Yeah.
Nothing.
Exactly.
There's
Yeah.
historical precedent. They can make it legal with the stroke of a pen, and you're SOL. So I think those two things, having way too much centralization via custodial ownership of Bitcoin, and then pairing on to that the fact that that the Lightning Network, yes, it is miraculous. Yes, it's great work, and I've spoken to some of the people who've architected not only Bitcoin but also Lightning. Like, the developers in this space are brilliant. They really are some of the best and brightest anywhere in crypto. But the fundamentals there of the game theory, it doesn't always work out as well as some of the Bitcoin maxis want to believe that it does. So yeah, between those two forces, Lightning is not L1 Bitcoin. It's just not. Full stop.
Yeah.
It just isn't.
Mm-hmm.
And then having your Bitcoin on an exchange is also not
Yeah.
Bitcoin. And those two attack vectors, I think, are far more dangerous to the sovereignty of Bitcoin than most people believe.
Yeah, a lot of people get caught up on that whole Lightning Network thing, and making Bitcoin this everyday stuff. I'm more up in the camp of just buy it and hold it. Don't try to make it this everyday thing, because it doesn't need to be that, right? That's not what you do with gold. That's not what you should be doing with digital gold.
Yeah.
So actually, a lot of people don't hold their old gold, their own gold.
Yeah, they
either.
they buy derivatives, right? They buy these derivatives online and say, "Yeah, I buy gold. It's in my portfolio." Like, you don't have any actual gold,
Right.
Bro.
Not
the
in your
internet
safe.
goes out, you're done.
So what are you mining? Rob asks, what are you mining after ETH? So I'm sure smart guy like yourself, you've got a game plan. Can you share behind the curtain a little bit? What's the game plan after ETH moves to proof of stake?
Sure, but here's the thing: your audience has probably already gotten used to this. I'm gonna answer that question by diving a little bit deeper, so you guys don't get out of here without learning something new. I've got on my screen, a couple of tools. One is whattomine.com. It's the GPU miner's best friend. You can check this out. It's not always perfect, but it is another good tool. And I see a leaderboard here by going to their GPUs tab. It shows me roughly what is in profit. And outside of Ethereum, for most cards, there's always something else, always another option, like Zero, ETH Classic, Flux, Ravencoin, Firo. Actually, I've got shout out to the Firo team. They sent me this really cool T-shirt. It's not a big shill, but it was fun.
Nice.
So fun merch days when projects send you stuff like that. But Firo, a couple other coins as well, like.
And what is this showing? Like what when I'm seeing these prices on there, what is that? What is that?
It's showing you what the cards are, the GPU cards on the left hand side, and how much profit you'll get mining that one currency.
But in what side? What sort of time frame? Like, what do you when it says
it's by hash power?
Yeah, that's daily. That's every 24 hours. And what's even better, Nick, is that at the top here where it says power cost, you can adjust this to whatever your market is. I was talking to Cryptos Chain out in Spain earlier today. Homie pays 35 cents per kilowatt hour.
That's really high, right?
In the south of Spain. It's terrible. It's terrible.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, even in California, you're not going to pay more than 22
Tommy
cents per kilowatt.
I knew I liked you, bro. That's
Here's the thing, man.
fantastic.
It takes one to know one. I grew up there, beautiful, charmed upbringing, but you couldn't pay me to go back. You couldn't
That's
drag me
fan-
back there.
That's fantastic. So you're saying one. So the first one, it looks like it says. Let me bring up the size a little bit farther here. So you're saying the NVIDIA GeForce RTX 3090. We'll just use this first one as an example. If you are mining ETH on that, right? Your revenue off of that one card, or that's a card, right? I know
Yeah,
not. Yeah. So that one card is $7.29 approximately a day. Is that what you're saying?
that's right. And profit would be totally contingent on your cost basis for power. So
That
all of
seems
this
like it's
will
not that
change.
much. I feel like you would. How much would you spend on a card like that?
$3,000, bro. It's
That's
still
what I'm
three
saying. So
thousand
like,
dollar
how
card.
does that become profitable?
Yeah, that's where it kind of snowballs. People who got into the space early,
Yeah.
they've been able to build up their collection of GPUs, and building up that collection of GPUs, they pretty much just roll their profits forward because you have marketplaces like Newegg here in the United States where you can pay with crypto, so you can take some of your profits and roll it into the next card if you really want to. There are a
Yeah.
lot of miners that kind of like they live that life where they're like, hey, all I'm doing over here, like this is play money. So
Right.
anything I earn, I roll back into the mining operation, and whatever the chips fall where they may, and I either pay it off or they're not keeping tabs on how much their profit really is.
Right.
Um, I don't like playing it that fast and loose. I prefer to kind of know, what the cost to being made whole on that purchase, or time
Yeah.
to be made whole on that purchase is.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm a much bigger fan. Take a look at this list again. We can go to a different side of the tab here. And now we can get more granular and say, all right, there's a bunch of other models that, at first glance, if you don't know this stuff, you wouldn't know what to pick.
Right.
But there's others, like as you do a little more homework, I run a spreadsheet for my community that kind of breaks some of this stuff down. But there's some older cards that if you can acquire them at the right price, they're still very, very high performance. They still give you really great daily return for the mining. And I know $1.60 doesn't sound like much, but when you're able to go to acquire a card like that for like, $200, or when you
Right.
already or when it first came out, like its MSRP was $200
Right.
4 years ago, 5 years ago.
Gotcha.
And,
Okay.
you buy during bear markets too. That's the other big secret. Too many people are talking about capitalizing their mining operations right now at the peak of the market. And all this stuff, the pricing reflects its market value as mining gear, not as
Yeah.
gaming gear.
Yeah.
That's where it gets a little bit dicey. So yeah, to answer your question from before though, like how to turn this into like how to capitalize on what you guys are doing. Maybe you just decide like, hey, we want to do some mining. I'd say what you'd want to do is look at, and it might sound kind of weird, maybe look at laptops that have embedded GPUs and really good CPUs, and you're going to be able to get better pricing for some of these parts by going that route. And then you'll have yourself a killer gaming laptop too, with a really nice screen.
That's super interesting, man. I had no
Yes,
idea. Yeah, I had no idea what what to expect. In terms of profitability, obviously, it's just probably like anything else. If you got in a long time, like when you started mining, I'm sure like you've been able to accumulate a heck of a lot more. For your cost basis on the front end is probably significantly different than someone that's like just getting into mining right now. But I like the fact that you have the opportunity to almost have a forced, let's call it forced savings, right? You buy the card, right? You buy whatever GPU, CPU, whatever it is that you're using, whatever you're using to mine, you've paid for it, and then it sits there and does its thing, and it essentially forces you to pay for itself and then continue to earn, revenue on top of that. I like it. I like it.
Yeah. I mean, it is, and it's not a sunk cost fallacy. There is a commitment of capital that goes into it. Proof of work is sort of proof of commitment too. So even more so with ASICs, right? Where it's like, hey, if you buy a Bitcoin mining ASIC, you're not going to mine Ethereum with it. That's for sure. Like it can't do it.
Right.
But with GPUs, it's still kind of, you still have committed capital to mining.
Yeah.
So yeah, it tends to be filled, like mining and the mining community tends to be filled with some really cool dudes, right? Lot of guys who are into import racing, a lot of guys who are like, mechanics, and a lot of guys who are developers too, and who are like systems engineers or integrated systems guys,
Yeah.
who just like, who had that sensibility of like, all right, big problems, how do I solve them, right? Bunch of little pieces. And they wind up like they show up every day to solve problems. And so it's a really healthy community too. Like
Yeah.
along with the mindset that you're saying of like, all right, I've got to lock this in until I earn that back. Like a lot of dedication from that community. So I think you guys would love it actually.
Yeah, I think we're going to definitely look into it. Miguel, do we have anything in the chat before we kind of close things out for this evening?
Rob says he's got a gaming laptop GPU running for ETH and Crypto Tab mining with my CPU.
It's
Nice.
all it's all it's all foreign to me. This is why we got the professional on here, right? Like, and then I think it comes down to, okay, so he's got his gaming laptop running, right? And I guess I do have a question on this. Is the gaming laptop able to mine running actively? Like can you be gaming and actively mining in the background, or does it need to be like doing its thing and you leave it the heck alone? You can't have anything else running.
It depends on the mining algorithm that you're doing, and I have seen some people who manage to do both, but they're never able to do both well. so,
Right. Okay.
so I mean, whatever. If you're gaming for a couple hours out of the day,
Yeah.
just shut the mining software off, and then resume 2 hours later. You just took 2 hours off of the network, and then you're still, when you do pooled mining, you're still going, depending on how they pay it out, you're still going to be credited for the other 22 hours out of the day. So
Yeah.
it's not that bad.
No, so yeah, I figured, because ultimately at the end of the day, you're using you're harnessing the power there, and you're eating up that power by playing a game, right? So that's absolutely,
you can't divide it up. Both are very powerful consumptions, so you can't divide it up enough.
looks
Hey,
like yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Sorry to make it weird. I noticed you actually have a female viewer. Congrats, you found the unicorn, guys.
So no,
Yeah,
but
we got a few. We got a few.
So we've got our Debate Crypto Academy. It's debatecrypto.academy. That's our website. And we do a lot of educational content. We ultimately have a community of people who are learning. We're doing some technical analysis stuff that we're getting into right now. And ultimately, we try to help people set up a game plan. I'll tell you what, the women in our group are more active than the men, hands down. There's 3 women in particular in our group that are exponentially like active, and man, I'll tell you, Seth, they're head and hands in, like they are watching, they are in it. So I like it, man. I saw them actually the other day. On TikTok, you can look at your analytics, and my analytics used to be 89 or 91% and then 9% female, right? So it was always like all men. And I just looked the other day, and my analytics are like 64-36. I was like, holy mackerel. I was very, very surprised. And my wife, of course, she's like, oh yeah, I'll bet they're really following you for crypto, right? I'm like, listen, trust
She
me.
leans in like, who are these women? I need names.
Too many grays going on here, babe, and they all know I'm married. They see my ring all the time. I talk about you all the time. And actually, my wife's not even kind of jealous. But yeah, I just thought it was funny. But the numbers are increasing significantly. So Miguel, this is actually, so we just recently got monetized on YouTube, and we'd have like super chat, super stickers. It looks like we have a super sticker here. This is a first, actually. So Goblin Loser IDK, I want to thank you for this channel's very first super sticker, right? So actually, Seth, you can probably tell us what's the difference between super sticker and a super chat.
Super sticker, it just debuted a little while ago. Super chat is kind of designed. It was kind of YouTube's way to try to reward creators for when they have to shill stuff that their audience tells them to say. And super sticker is just a thank you that has like just an emoji or a sticker. That's it. No words.
Hey, well, thank you, Some Goblin Loser IDK. We appreciate it. You literally are the first person to do that. So we love you. We appreciate you. So that's cool. Thank you. All right, Crypto fam. Well, first of all, Seth, thank you very. Whoops. Trying to get that off. There we go. Thank you very much for coming on, dude. I really appreciate it. We definitely need to hook up more often. We will definitely probably have you back on sometime. If you are interested in doing that, we'd love to have you back on. We're here for Miguel. So that's Heidi. Heidi's in our group, right? Heidi actually has been trolling me for about 16 hours of the 24 hours today. So Heidi, I appreciate you. I still love you. But yeah, Seth, thank you very much for coming on. Crypto fam, just again, real
100%.
quick before we jump out, if you haven't already smashed a like, smash a like. If you're not following Mind Your Biz, if you're looking for just educational content, period, especially as it relates to mining, his information will be down below in the info. But yeah, if nobody's told you before today, guys, we love you. We appreciate each and every one of you.